If there's one characteristic that defines U.S. President Donald Trump, it's his habit of switching his positions on a dime, leaving many a critic looking rather foolish when they establish an argument against him today, only to discover he mostly agrees with them tomorrow. I've learned it's best to wait a little before commenting on the man's policy decisions and allow time for the debate to ferment. After months of deflection and now retraction, the Jeffrey Epstein controversy has turned especially ripe. In July, Trump ordered his Attorney General Pam Bondi to release files related to the Epstein investigation, including grand jury testimony for which a judge's approval is necessary. However, the move came after more than a week of controversy around the topic and Trump trying to deflect the uproar that would just not die down. Pressure mounted that Friday after the Wall Street Journal published a previously unreleased letter by Trump on the occasion of Epstein's 50th birthday, including the drawing of a naked woman, which Trump has said is fake and is now suing for defamation. Despite campaign promises by Trump to release certain files pertaining to the investigation into deceased society figure and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, his administration in early July declared that these documents, a client list specifically, did not exist and that it believed that Epstein had taken his own life in prison. As Statist's Katharina Buchholz reports, the announcement alienated Trump's base, which for years has been fed a narrative around an Epstein conspiracy, including by Trump and people now in his administration. The conspiracy claims that documents implicating prominent figures in sex crimes have been held back for years and that Epstein was murdered as a cover-up. Attorney General Pam Bondi had as recently as February referred to the list as existing, while ex-Trump confidant Elon Musk in June tweeted that Trump was implicated in the files. The post was deleted shortly after. In July, only 17% of U.S. voters approved of the handling of the Epstein files, the lowest among 8 surveyed, including issues such as immigration, trade, the economy, the Russia-Ukraine, and the Israel-Hamas conflict. To understand the chaos surrounding the Epstein issue, we have to first recognize that it's the product of an inherent division within the MAGA movement that needs to be addressed. The campaign to support Trump is built on two groups that intersect but don't always agree. Number one, average Republicans and some moderates who are mostly concerned with defeating the agenda of leftists and keeping woke activists out of the government power. Two, hardcore conservatives and libertarians from the conspiracy end of the movement who are most concerned with defeating the globalist cabal. I find myself rooted in both camps and I see both as essential, though the goals of the second group are ultimately more important. To be clear, leftist saboteurs are a legitimate concern that has been employed as a weapon against the rest of the populace. I'm growing especially tired of the laziness of libertarians who cry false left, right paradigm, while forgetting the living hell we all experienced under the reign of Joe Biden and the Democrats. The differences between conservatives and leftists cannot be denied. The country has at least been tolerable under Trump. No more transitioning or grooming of children in schools. No more Pride Month, no more pandering to DEI, no more open borders, no more federal accusations of conservatives being terrorists and a danger to democracy. If you can't at least give some credit for these changes, then you are not a serious person and I have no time for you. That said, in the end, the threat of the political left pales in comparison to the threat presented by the 1%. Some of these people even harbor a Luciferian ideology of self-worship and moral relativism, and they are in positions of immense power, at least in financial terms. Though their political reputation in the U.S. is faltering, they still have near total control of the narratives in Europe, Australia, and Canada, not to mention invasive financial influence throughout most of the world. Look at it this way. Have you ever heard of a one percenter, also known as elitist, being punished or arrested for their attempts to manipulate and corrupt the social and or governmental institutions of any given nation? How many elite NGOs have been shut down in a recent memory? Isn't the U.S. still pouring tax dollars into institutions like the IMF, BIS, through the Federal Reserve, and the World Bank? Political factions may battle for the minds of the masses, and many times these fights are very real, but the elitists always remain in the background watching and waiting for another chance to push civilization further towards their dystopian vision. They don't care what happens politically as long as their money and influence remain intact. No one ever aims their cannons at the whispering men lurking behind the curtain. For conservatives, dealing with the evils of the political left serves the immediate purpose of treating symptoms but not the disease. These globalist elites are a parasitic organism that feeds on humanity, spawning more and more decline and despair as they grow. They must be eliminated from the equation if our future is to ever improve. Trump has openly admonished the elites on many occasions, and he ran his 2016 and 2024 campaigns on reversing the economic damage they have done. Defeating this corrupted system was a big part of his election platform, it's undeniable. The problem is he has consistently backed away from any direct prosecution or punishment of said devils. Trump stated succinctly in 2024 that he would release the Epstein list, and now he refuses. The haphazard dismissal of the Epstein files, despite the embarrassing controversy, is a reality check for the conspiracy subset. For the anti-globalist portion of MAGA, especially libertarians and conservative Christians, you have been given notice. Trump is not your gladiator or your savior. He's not going to fulfill your dreams of government reform, nor is he going to bring the hammer down on the elites. All we want is a concise list of who engaged with Epstein and his services. These people need to be called out and brought to justice now. If they are in government, they need to be removed ASAP. There is no room for pedos in American leadership anymore. For those seeking answers as to why Trump is running away from the Epstein client list like it's a nuclear bomb, it's because it is a nuclear bomb. I continue to hold that the list is pure poison for the existing government, and that its release would be so detrimental it might actually trigger the collapse of the U.S. system and create a cataclysmic domino effect around the world. It's so dangerous, in fact, that Trump is now asserting it doesn't exist, or that it's a Democrat conspiracy with files manipulated by Democrats before Biden left office. There's no explanation as to what Trump means by this other than he seems to be saying the existing evidence is fabricated. Epstein was arrested for child trafficking. He conveniently died by suicide before going to trial. Psychopathic personalities like Epstein rarely kill themselves, nullifying any court discovery and public release of his files. Numerous victims have come forward, but we're supposed to believe that there were no clients, or that Epstein never kept a list of those clients. It's pure stupidity. The Trump administration admits to obtaining an endless array of videos featuring minor victims. The question is simple. Who is in those videos abusing those young girls or boys? It's not that difficult to understand. We want the names, and we're never going to stop demanding those names. But let's not fool ourselves. We're not going to get our hands on the real unredacted list. Why? Because some of the most powerful people in the world are on that register, and pedophilia is still an unforgivable sin in the eyes of the West. Proof of a mass conspiracy of wealthy pedos and political diddlers is one of the few things that would inspire the public to actually pick up torches and pitchforks and burn Washington, D.C. to the ground. It's not a coincidence that woke activists and NGOs have sought to normalize pedophilia through trans propaganda. Pro-pedophilia extremists eventually want to turn the crime into a social issue, labeling it a matter of sexual preference, protected by inclusion ideology so they can pursue their disgusting fetish with impunity. Though leftists have intricate arguments as to why children should be allowed to legally consent, the act of pedophilia is still considered worthy of long-term imprisonment, castration, or even death. No normal human is convinced by the consent theory. Meaning, if a sweeping list is produced that includes the names of government officials, those officials would be dealt with by someone even if they never face prosecution. Trust in government would plummet. The normal functions of American institutions could cease. The country could collapse. Could this calamity be managed? Possibly, but I don't think any political leader, including Trump, wants to take responsibility for the repercussions. Some say that Trump is on the list. Obviously, he knew Epstein, as did most people in the upper echelons of society. Epstein made a point to slither into every wealthy circle he could find. Trump did reportedly kick the guy out of Mar-a-Lago after finding out he made a pass at the underage daughter of an associate. If Trump is on the list, then there must be extensive blackmail evidence. So why didn't Democrats ever release it? Democrats had 4 years to flood the media with information, real or fake, on the Epstein case, and they did absolutely nothing. I think most of us know that there are many prominent Democrats on the list, and he may be right there next to them. Everyone expected the Democrats to suppress the list. No one expected them to do the right thing. People were fuming about Trump because they had high hopes. They expected him to damn the torpedoes and release the files regardless of the aftermath. Clearly, government will always protect itself first. It's not an excuse, it's just a fact. You are probably familiar with the concept of the thin blue line, the assertion that police act as the only barrier between order and mayhem in American society. The notion has been criticized as elitist and fundamentally untrue. Cops rarely stop crimes in progress and only clean up the mess afterwards, leaving most Americans to protect themselves. But one could argue that the mere existence of law enforcement as an institution acts as a deterrent to societal decay. And in past, this idea of the greater good has led LEOs to protect each other from prosecution rather than pursue the ugly truth about their brothers in arms. I think that many people within government also see themselves as a thin line of protection, a morally gray barrier between civilization and annihilation, a line between order and anarchy. I think they view their mandate as sacrosanct and that the ends always justify the means. There is a large percentage of the normal population that is also willing to overlook the Epstein debacle if it means defeating the chaos of the woke revolution. Recent polls show Trump's overall approval rating among Republicans actually increased after his handling of the Epstein issue, even though a majority of people in polls also believe the case is being covered up. There's a lot of us that will continue to call attention to the client list, but don't doubt for a second that many other people will forget and move on within weeks. Again, the anti-elitists need to accept the reality that they have limited influence within MAGA. Plenty of people care about libertarian economic theory, the Bilderberg Group, Davos, CBDCs, foreign aid to Israel, and cults of ultra-rich Luciferian pedos, but not enough people to make any of these things a popular priority. The deeper agenda of globalist control is barely on the peripheral radar, or they don't take it seriously enough to worry about it over their morning coffee. Could Trump suddenly change his stance and unleash a torrent of files tomorrow? Like I said in the beginning, he switches positions on a dime, but it will be hard for him to go back on his claims that the client list represents a hoax. I am doubtful we'll see an uncensored version of the list, and even more doubtful that anyone will be prosecuted. Trump is certainly pulling America back from leftist extremism, which is a good thing, but he has no intention of going to war with the 1%. As I have noted over and over again, if liberty proponents want to get rid of the cabal, they will have to stop waiting for political solutions that will never materialize. The war to unseat the upper echelon of society will not be fought by MAGA, but all of us together. The eternal mandate of the political edifice is self-preservation, and Trump is part of that edifice. 7 House Republicans listed in my article below voted against a motion in July that would have allowed a congressional vote regarding the release of files in Jeffrey Epstein's case. Representative Ro Khanna, the Democrat from California, tabled an amendment for a House vote requiring Attorney General Pam Bondi to preserve and release any records related to Jeffrey Epstein. The motion was defeated 5-7. One Republican member, Ralph Norman, voted yes alongside Democrats. Republican Representative Chip Roy missed the vote. If passed by Congress, the amendment would have forced Pam Bondi to publish the Epstein documents on a publicly accessible website. Representative Khanna put this vote up to the House Rules Committee after the DOJ released a memo obtained by Axios, which states that there is no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. This memo contradicts Bondi's previous assertion in February of this year that Epstein's so-called client list was sitting on my desk right now to review. Despite calls for the alleged list and more information on Epstein coming from MAGA voters, 7 of the Republican majority on the House Rules Committee voted against placing congressional pressure on the DOJ to release records on Epstein. They are also listed in my article down in the description box below.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.